Today, I will be explaining a series of cost diagrams and analyzing how businesses classify their costs. Most specifically, I will be concentrating on the company Coca-Cola. Firstly, we must understand that a company has two types of costs when operating. They are fixed costs and variable costs. I will first be talking about fixed costs. In short, they are business expenses that are constant whatever the quantity of goods or services produced. These can include rent or salaries, thus tending to be time related. As you can see in the graph, the fixed cost is a horizontal line, meaning that it remains constant no matter how much output is being produced. Putting it into the context of the company Coca-Cola, fixed costs can range from the monthly or annual rent of the land where their factories are built upon to simply the rent of an office block for its sector in Hong Kong. It could also be salaries for Coca-Cola employees, where different salaries are fixed depending on each of the employees' skill level and position. On the other hand, variable costs are referred to as expenses that change in proportion to the activity of a business. Different from fixed costs, they are usually activity related, meaning that it is affected by the amount of output. This is shown in the graph, where fixed cost increases as the number of output also increases. In this graph, it shows a linear and proportional relationship. However, in reality, it can vary when economies of scale is implied and so forth. In the case of Coca-Cola, some variable costs include the transportation of goods or taxation. Transportation costs will increase as number of outputs increase. As more trucks or cargo ships are needed to transport more packages of Coca-Cola produced. Taxation is also a variable cost. For instance, as a company produces more outputs to be exported overseas, the amount of tariff a company must pay will also increase. Other forms of variable costs may include maintenance, utilities, storage costs, or raw materials. Moving on, I will be talking about total costs. Total cost, TC, describes the total economic cost of production and is made up of variable costs plus fixed costs. Thus, according to the graph, it is a combination of the line fixed cost FC and variable costs VC. For instance, if the fixed cost of Coca-Cola amounts to 100,000, while its initial variable cost is 0 and goes up in a linear fashion to 500,000, the initial total cost, where fixed cost plus variable cost, is 100,000, while the ending total cost is 600,000. Next, we will be looking at marginal costs. By definition, marginal cost is a change in the total cost that arises when the quantity produced changes by 1 unit. That is, it is the cost of producing one more unit of a good. In the above diagram, we can see that the marginal cost is a parabola. This is because as the production reaches greatest efficiency, the marginal cost to produce one more unit is as least, or otherwise at the curve's minimum. However, when the production output continues to increase, thus achieving diseconomies of scale, marginal cost will increase as one more unit is being produced, causing the overall production or output to be less efficient for every extra unit. In reality, many companies hope to produce at greatest efficiency, where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, otherwise known as profit maximization. Here, in the last diagram, illustrates or summarizes the two costs, variable and fixed costs. As we have discussed before, variable cost is dependent. For instance, taxation increases as more cargoes or packages of Coca-Cola is produced. On the other hand, fixed cost is output independent, as the rent for the land is independent from production of Coca-Cola. In variable costs, there are direct costs, meaning that they change with a level of output. However, specifically relating to a particular project or the output of a single product. Without the project, the costs will not be incurred on the company. For instance, a direct cost for Coca-Cola could be the introduction of vanilla Coke, which requires alternate raw materials such as vanilla extract. On the other hand, indirect cost is similar to fixed costs. However, it is not readily identified with a particular business activity. For instance, insurance that Coca-Cola buys for its transportation of goods could be a direct cost. Finally, we have the semi-variable cost, where it refers to costs that contain an element of both fixed and variable costs. Overtime payment for employees working at a Coke factory is a good example. Thank you for listening to my broadcast.